How often do you get to the end of another day running your MSP and there's just too much work left to do? Sure, you've got the basic work done and the clients are happy, but you've had another day where you haven't grown your business or worked on the big projects that matter the most. If this is you, then there's one big change that you need to put in place. And my guest today is an expert at saving business owners from the chaos of their business. The next 5 minutes could change your life forever.
Hi, I'm Andrew Hartman. I am the founder of Time Boss, and we help MSPs get the results that they want without overwhelm.
I love that. Great company name, Time Boss. It's just as soon as I saw that company name, when you and I were talking about this interview, I thought, oh, I love that. And I love the pitch as well, helping MSPs to get done what they need to get done. So if I was to boil it down and sort of introduce you to someone outside of our world, are you someone who helps people be more productive, or do you help them make better use of your time, or is it something different?
It's really a little of both. It's everyone wants something. We all have things that we want, right? We can name it. We want our MSP to grow. We want higher client satisfaction. We want to have better recruitment, whatever it is. Every MSP has something that they want. All of those things are on the other side of time. And so if we don't have a right relationship with time, if we don't have to navigate it, if we don't know how to break things down into manageable tasks that we can make happen, if we don't have a good sense of our capacity, we're not going to get those things and we're going to end up overwhelmed. So really, we just help people think differently about time to get those results that they want, all without overwhelm.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And how did you get here? So what's your backstory? Now, I'm going to guess is it the rags to riches story of that you used to be the most disorganized, time poor person, and then you have a revelation change your life? Is it that, or is it something else?
Of course it's that. So the best products come from solving our own problems. So I spent my career in early stage software companies prior to coming to being at MSPs. I'm actually a fractional COO at an MSP now. But prior to that, I was in early stage software companies, short runways, high expectations, got to deliver, no margin for error. And I was absolutely cooking. I was so overwhelmed. And I looked around and everyone was overwhelmed. It was how people operated. Stress was fuel. It was how we made things happen. If you weren't overwhelmed, you weren't working hard enough. And that served me to a point, but eventually I started hitting my red line like a lot of people do, where you just realize, hey, this is taking more than I wanted to take of my health, of my relationships. I'd come home from work, be physically home, but not emotionally home. I'd be totally exhausted, didn't have anything to bring to my family or my friends. Started impacting my sleep, ended up losing my sense of smell for 6 months because of stress. I could feel it coming on pre-COVID. This is in the 2000s. Could feel it coming on from stress. And really, stress will do wacky things to us. It is a yellow flashing light that we need to change. Hypertension, headaches, IBS, you name it. It'll do all kinds of things to our body. So I knew it had to be different. I didn't know what to do. I knew I had to keep delivering results, probably like a lot of the MSP leaders listening. You feel like I have to keep delivering results. I can't change. But I knew it had to be different. So for me, I was a COO at the time. I was all about how do we blend process and people. And so I said for myself, I have got to figure out a way to get results without this overwhelm. And it started me on a journey to build out the system. It took me 10 years to build it for myself. Realized it was incredibly valuable for me, was incredibly valuable for my teams. Others started asking me to coach them on it. And it led us into this business called Time Boss now, where we help teams learn and adopt this framework to get those results they want without overwhelm.
I love this. And you talking about your experience in early stage software, I think is very similar to the experience in the first few years of running your MSP. And you obviously know this because of the people you're working with. I talk to MSPs almost every day, and people I already know and new people, and it's rare for me to talk to someone who's been running their MSP for, let's say, 10 years, right? 10 years is a mature business, right? And normally by that point they've got themselves to a level of comfort in terms of the amount of work. But some of those people, that level of comfort is working 30 hours a week or 20 hours a week, and those businesses are flying because they've had to build good teams around them. They've had to go from the 60-hour weeks to the 20-hour weeks and put in place things to make sure the clients are even more delighted than when they were there. But then sometimes I talk to people who are 10 years in and they're still doing 50 hours and they're still, they're crazy nuts things like they're still doing help desk for not just the odd hour here or there to cover, but like they'll be like, oh yeah, I've got to cover help desk this week. This week, Why would you do that? You've got 12 people on your team. Why would you do that? Oh, it's because. And so they've never got time. And you're right, it's all about time. They've never got the time to think, to reflect, to see, actually look at the big picture and say, right, I've only got 20 more years or 30 more years left on the planet. This is the life I want to lead. This is what I need in order to live that life. And how quickly can I get there while delighting my clients, and delighting my staff, and delighting my family. Does that reflect upon, is that your experience of MSPs as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's fascinating. I think MSPs, because of the nature of them, most of them are started by founders, and founders are still involved unless they've exited. And when that founder started, they had to wear all the hats. So the habits that they operated on at the beginning of their business was, I must do it all. This business will die unless I do it all, unless I'm on help desk, unless I do projects, unless I do sales, unless I do marketing, all the things. And so, and if a MSP founder or leader that's scaling within that business isn't careful, they're just going to continue to hold on to those things because they're afraid if they let them go, they're not going to be done as well as they want them to, or whatever. And to your point, then they get into that avalanche of, there's too much to do, so I don't have time to develop. There's too much to do, so I don't have time to develop, and they never change. And so really our experience of time, I love what you said, delight customers, delight clients, and delight our family. Whatever you're getting on that playing field right now is a direct function of your habits related to time. So if you don't change your habits related to time, your experience of life won't change. You won't be pulling out of the help desk. You'll be up on Saturday night on the 24/7 help desk line talking to clients. It's just the way it is. And so the way I say is, you both have to change your habits, and you have to look at it like time math. There's so much that has to get done. There's only so much time. Who are the right people to slot into these roles to make those things happen? And the answer isn't always you. Dan Sullivan wrote that phenomenal book, Who Not How, with Ben Hardy. And it's just the best question to ask. When a new responsibility comes in, the right question for us to ask is, who should do this? Not how am I going to get it done? And just thinking differently, those slight little adjustments to how we think about time can dramatically impact our experience of both the results we get from our MSP and our experience of life, which both are critical. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that is an insanely good book. It's one of the books over on my big bookshelf on the right here, just off screen, which is full of my favourite business books, and that has its place there. Andrew, let's get into potential solutions. So talk to us about the Time Boss framework. And I appreciate it's probably, if you spent 10 years developing it, it's going to be a very rich and very thorough model. But can you give us an overview? And what I'm really looking for as well is what can someone who's watching this on YouTube or listening to this on the podcast, what are some takeaways that they can get from that, which will just make an instant positive difference to their management and perception of how they use their time?
Yeah, I love that question, Paul. Yeah, let me start really high level, and then we'll get incredibly practical with the tools. So it's really about a couple of things. One is, the big idea is your highest sustainable pace, and it's this. It's like if you think like a distance runner, every distance runner has a pace in mind, right? And they know if they were to start that distance run, and an MSP is absolutely a marathon, it's a distance run. They know that if they sprint out the gate, they're going to end up doubled over, and they probably won't even finish the race, right? So just grinding is not an adequate solution for us to get the results we want from our MSP. Now, at the same time, a distance runner is not going to walk a marathon because it's too slow, right? You can't just over-optimize on self-care. Hey, I'm not going to feel any stress in 2025. That's not realistic. We can't operate that way. We're not going to get the results that we want. The only rational way to operate is just like a distance runner, is to find that pace, that highest sustainable pace, where you will get the best results possible in a way that you can stay in the game and keep getting it. So we teach highest sustainable pace. The way that we get there is two simple habits. One is a weekly planning meeting. And literally that's where the name Time Boss comes from. When you plan out your week, you become the boss of your future self. You're literally treating your future self like an employee. And you're thinking about, how do I set up that individual to be successful? What are the highest leverage activities that they can work on? They're going to make the biggest difference for my business. And we do the work to really map out a realistic week. And there's all kinds of things that happen within that. That's what we teach. But when we do that, necessarily not everything is going to fit, right? There's only so much time. We are finite human beings. It's time math. Again, there's so much that has to get done, and I only have so much time. Then we encourage people to go through a really disciplined process to deal with the items that don't fit. And most of the time that involves getting others involved in those tasks, really running a high quality delegation process. So it's not just about you working help desk, to your analogy, Paul. I love that analogy. But again, what we often do, instead of being our time boss, instead of doing that weekly planning meeting, we just kind of throw ourselves into the week. We open up help desk, we open up our email inbox, we open up Teams, and we just start grinding. And really, we're working other people's priorities. We're not working on the things that are actually important to us. And we're task switching so rapidly, we're wasting so much time, we end up exhausted, and we don't even know what we got done at the end of the day. So by having a weekly planning meeting, again, being that time boss, you're freeing up your future self to just make the plan happen. You're creating a great plan for them that they can carry out. And then we teach another habit called a daily review meeting. If you've read Deep Work by, it's right by me, Cal Newport. I was trying to remember his name. He talks about a daily close down. And I think that's so critical. At the end of your day, closing down your day where you're getting everything out of your head back into the system so that you can be fully free to the rest of your life, to be fully present to your family, to your community, to your church, whatever it is you do after work. But having a way to really close down so those things don't just haunt you all night or all weekend, like these emotional anchors that we can't get away from. So those are the habits. And there's there's just 3 simple tools that we use within those habits that we can certainly talk more about. The one very practical thing that I think will instantly reduce overwhelm for an MSP leader that's listening is this. In the midst of your day, you have two things happening. You have your priorities, the things you actually want to be working on, and you have the chaos that is coming at you. Emails, phone calls, systems breaks, clients are mad, spouse needs you, kid gets sick, flat tire. I mean, you name it, the things that we can't stop. That chaos is here to stay. We cannot solve it. And so all of that is happening on top of each other. And that chaos makes it so hard for us to focus on our priorities. So what I suggest when people are planning out their day is they literally plan 20 to 40% of their day for the chaos. And the more control they have over their time, the less of that buffer they need. But literally adding buffer to their calendar that they don't schedule over simply to contend with those last second items that are going to come up that they absolutely have to handle. The urgent and important that leader is responsible to handle. What it does, Paul, it has this magic trick where when we know that there's time available for us to handle those things, we are so much more likely to try to divert those last second requests coming into that buffer time so that we can stay focused on our actual priorities. And it doesn't always happen that way, right? Like system goes down, you're responsible for it, you just got to handle it. But it doesn't, that is the rare exception. And we build our time management habits on the exceptions instead of the average. And so the average leader listening, if you put that buffer in your calendar and you do your best to stay focused on your priorities, and when those buffer times come up, you could do an hour in the morning, an hour midday, hour at the end of the day, you architect it the way you want. But I promise it will increase your commitment to your actual priorities, knowing you have time later to deal with these last second items that are going to come up. So you don't just switch over to them and work on them because you don't know when you're going to work on them, but you can actually be confident that I can stay focused on my priorities right now.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. In fact, there's an MSP I know who does exactly that. And this is a very structured way that you can give your time to your technicians in a way which doesn't impact on your plan time. So he doesn't work in his office with his technicians, but they have 2 specific times of the day. I think it's like 9:30 in the morning, let's say 2:30 in the afternoon, where he will jump on a Teams call and he'll say to them, if you've got any questions about any tickets or any projects or anything, that's when you do the questions. So don't send me messages, don't WhatsApp me, don't message me on Teams, don't send me emails, don't call me. If you call me, I'm not going to answer you. I'm not being an a-hole here. I'm being very, very organized because my job is to bring in new clients so I can pay you more. But you've got me for an hour a day split into 2 30-minute chunks. And guess what happens is when he introduced that, first time everyone was on the call. And then the second day, a few people dropped out of that call because they didn't really have questions. And the third day, there were fewer people. And now he probably has 1 or 2 questions that come a week out of those sessions. So he'll dial in. If no one's there, he'll just dial out again. And because what it's done is it's forced his technicians to ask, can I solve this now? Or can I talk to a colleague and solve this now? Or does this need to go to the boss? So he's eliminated a whole series of things that would have been escalated to him if he was more available. So I agree and love everything that you have just said there. My final question for you is about, is this ever finished? Now, I asked this as someone, I've been in business. This is my 20th year in business. And I remember when I started, I was very disorganized, very chaotic. I'd come from I was a radio presenter, but in the corporate world, and you kind of had your day planned for you by the meetings other people were having and all of that stuff. And then suddenly I'm my own boss, and I wanted to get things done. And I remember working through different systems. I used to use something called rememberthemilk.com, if you ever remember that. It was an amazing system.
Remember that. And
then I was an early adopter of Todoist, which I still use now. And I know that's the tool, and the tool doesn't make it, but Todoist is just just got better and better over the years. But what I've found is I'm 50 now and my priorities have changed. I have a teenage child, I have a girlfriend. I don't want to work, more than the hours I want to work, but I also want to achieve a lot more. And I've found that my personal system for getting things done, to quote David Allen, my productivity system is changed dramatically as my role within the business has changed. Do you see that happening with MSPs? And is that a natural, healthy thing?
Absolutely. Yes. And you have to constantly evaluate that. It's unfortunately what everyone is looking for. I love your comment about the app. The number one question I get asked is, what app should I use? And it's just, it's unfortunate that that's not the solve. We all are looking for that switch to flip where it's that way and it never changes. And that's where with Time Boss, we teach these reflexive habits where you are always on this continuum between making the progress you want and experiencing the peace you want. And you have to be evaluating those systems week over week, month over month, year over year to make the changes necessary so that you stay in that zone, that productive zone you want to be in where you get the results you want without overwhelm. But unfortunately, it's not a switch you flip. It's got to evolve over time because your time's going to change, your requirements are going to change, your stakeholders are going to change. All of those things influence how we show up and make things happen. And so you just got to be ready to make adjustments.
That makes perfect sense. I am off to see if Remember the Milk still exists because I want a 20-year-old nostalgia hit, and I really hope it does exist. While I go and do that, Andrew, just tell us, what do you actually physically do to help MSPs? So you've obviously got this incredible framework, but how do you help them implement it? And what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. I appreciate the question. So we do a course called Master Your Week for leadership teams and management teams, where we take those individuals through the process to learn the Time Boss weekly framework and help them make the structural adjustments to their internal systems, their communication workflows to help them get those results they want without overwhelm. From there, those leadership and management teams can take it into their teams if they like, or they can bring Time Boss in to lead workshops to train the entire team and then bring them up to speed on it. And then we simply come back monthly or quarterly. And as the language I use is de-weed the garden, just help people stay committed to the system. Once they get the results, they don't want to go back. And we essentially become an outsourced accountability partner to help them work through the friction so they don't backslide. Best thing to do is find me on LinkedIn, Andrew Hartman or Time Boss, or you can find our website, www.timeboss.us, and all the details are there as well.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Edge.